Welcome, Eastham part-time residents. We're in our second virtual meeting of the summer. This one, again, is brought to us thanks to TJ Keene, our administrator. We have a pretty hefty agenda this evening. Aside from the usual finance update and secretary's report and so on and so forth, we also have voting for new board members and new officers, or I should say board members in general, and new officers. We also have guests tonight of Deborah DeJonker-Berry, Jackie Beebe, our town administrator, Jim Russo from the Eastham 400, and also from the town of Eastham, we have Rich Bienvenu, Sylvia Janeo, and Adam Bohannon. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And members, I hope you enjoy our meeting. Thank you. So first on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the June 20th, 2020 member virtual meeting. Carolyn?
Yes. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending the member meeting tonight. The minutes of our first virtual EPRTA member meeting took place on June 20th, 2020, and they were sent to members on July 14th in attached email. Before I move to accept the minutes of the meeting, I'll give a very brief recap. The meeting was called to order at 9 a.m. The secretary had the minutes approved by 63 respondents. The treasurer gave an income statement for 2019 and 2020. The membership chair gave a report. Our current membership is a little over 1,400 members. The newsletter chair gave an update, and the nominating committee chair presented the board of director nominations with brief biographies. Our first guest speaker, Brian Karlstrom, superintendent of the Cape Cod National Seashore, gave a detailed presentation on COVID-19, how it was going to impact operations at the National Seashore. This presentation was followed by Jackie Beebe, the town administrator, who responded to member comments made in the EPRTA survey from the spring. She gave a detailed presentation, clustering her remarks on the following topics. COVID-19, of course, the effect of COVID-19 on town budget and elections, voting rights, taxes and tax structure, update on capital projects, town infrastructure improvements, special grants and projects, long-term planning projects this summer, short-term, other, what's next. Jackie also took additional questions from members that were submitted by chat and email, as she will again tonight do. Our president, Helen Kinsman, adjourned the meeting around 11:15 a.m. So I move to accept the minutes of the meeting from June 20th.
So moved.
Do you second them?
Second the motion.
Okay, thank you. So you can all vote at this time by clicking on the link to vote to approve the minutes to the meeting.
I don't know how you do that. Thanks, vote. I don't know how that works.
And just to recap, to vote, an email was sent out from eParta, and on the bottom there was a vote link. And if you go there, there are 3 questions that need voting responses for.
You get to the email.
So Carolyn, thank you very much for your update on the minutes, for your introduction about the voting. And we'll move from here to the treasurer's report and the review and the vote on the 2021 budget.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Keene. I am the treasurer of EPARDA. So I just wanted to go over our income statement, balance sheet, and our budget for 2021. The first slide, excuse me, that you'll see is a recap of our income statement for 2019. This is as of year end, December 31st. So the key points on this are our total income was $25,641. Our biggest expenses always are our paid administrator, our marketing, which amounts to about $2,200, and newsletters, which were $3,593. So our total expenses were $20,787 or so, which left us with a net income of $4,854.24. The next page after that is basically the same thing, but as of current time, so as of August 24th. So the only real differences our expenses and our income are pretty steady over the last 4 or 5 years. So there really aren't that many differences. You'll see as of August 24th, our membership dues are at $16,355 versus the $25,578. So that's roughly a little bit over half, and we're a little bit over half of the year. So the only difference would be our net income now is at $33,385.65. And if anyone has any questions, they can write them on the YouTube, and I'll try to see if I can read them by the time I'm done. So then the next slide is our balance sheet as of year end. So our assets are in a mixture of checking account and CDs, and we have $53,605 in assets. We have no liabilities, so that gives us a balance sheet of $53,605 as of year end. The slide after that is again as of current date, as of I guess 2 days ago. And what we did here was the 2020 versus 2019 balance sheet comparison. So just where we were this year at the same time as last year. And you'll see we're very, very similar. This year we had $56,465 in assets, whereas last year we had $53,995. So it was a slight increase. And this year we have an other asset category for security deposit. Since we didn't have either of our meetings at the Elks Club, we had put down money for a deposit to hold those. So we have that going forward to next year. So we have a security deposit of $525. So the big difference here is we have about $3,000 or so more dollars in assets than we did last year at this time. So to go to the next slide, this is our 2019 versus actual versus our budget to see how we fared versus what we budgeted last year. And we did put some comments down on the right column, and most of you should have had this email, so you hopefully could have looked at this beforehand. So we budget $23,000 in membership dues. We actually got $25,578 in dues in 2019. So that was about $25,778 more than we anticipated. But as the comments say, we deposited $4,480 on January 18th, which did have a combination of 2018 dues and 2019 dues. So it was a little higher than it really probably should be. The only other, you can look down through the expenses. We had no board of directors expenses. Usually we have put a big binder together with all of our information, so we didn't need to do that this year. We did spend additional money on community outreach. We gave gifts to the Historical Society, the Eastham 400, and the Nauset Life Preservation. So we did give an extra $1,150 over what we anticipated on community outreach. The marketing also went up. We anticipated we budgeted $1,500 and we spent $2,234. That was because we increased the number of marketing letters sent in the spring for membership. We found that actually sending these letters does result in new members. So we found that the costs are worthy. Our meetings are down because we didn't have any meetings. And so that's just a prepaid meeting hall rental. And the last thing we have a comment on here, the only real difference here is the website costs are on a 2-year plan. So we didn't have any expenses in 2019. We will have those in 2020. So overall, we budgeted a net income of $1345. We had an actual net income of $4,854. So we had $3,509 more in income than we had anticipated. So, and then
Oh, go ahead.
the next slide, I think my last slide here, is the 2021 proposed budget. And what you'll see here is the columns, the 2018, 19, 20, and 21 budget. And then the column after that would be the comparison of the 21 and 20 budgets. And as I said before, there haven't been many big changes in our budgeting over the last 4 or 5 years. We conservatively estimate membership dues at around 23,000. Not quite sure, as of right now, even without meetings in person, we're still keeping our membership numbers the same, if not a little bit higher. So that's good. I don't know if we continue to not meet in person, if that will impact things because people can't pay their dues in person. But hopefully that won't impact us at all. Interest amount is going down just because interest rates are down. So again, I put some comments in there. The board of director expenses, we now have some additional Zoom fees for these types of meetings. The marketing, we did increase from 1,500 to 2,000, of an increase of 500, because as I said before, additional marketing has increased our membership. We are anticipating, we put 2,000 down for meetings. Hopefully that will have one meeting at least in person next year. Fingers crossed. We're going to keep, the newsletter amount had gone from 4,000 a couple years ago to 3,000. It's a lot of work to get 4 newsletters out. So we decided we're going to do 3 newsletters and make sure they were chock full of information. So that went down $1,000 a couple years ago, and we're going to keep that the same. And that's about it. So our total expenses, 20 versus 21, is an increase of $500, which is basically for marketing. So we're anticipating a net income of negative $535 if our membership dues only stay at $23,000. So I'm going to look here and see if anyone has any questions. If anyone has any questions, I don't see any. So I need to make a motion to approve the 2021 budget. And as I said before, you can go on that vote link that was sent in the email from EPARDA that said vote. And you can do this. You'll have to do this for this and also for our board of directors. So you can click on that. And it says, do you approve the 2021 budget as presented at the membership meeting? You can say yes. If you have any questions or whatever, you can say no. And then that would be, going back onto YouTube. It's hard to have a lot of slides open here at the same time. So if anyone has any questions, if not, I'm going to move on to, hold on, the auditor's report. So our auditor, David Conley, doesn't do Zoom. So I think the letter's printed out on this on the stack that you're seeing right now, but I'll just read what he said to us. I have reviewed the fiscal books for fiscal year 2019 and have found all receipts and expenditures to be in order. The fiscal records meet the standards as prescribed by general accounting standards. All checks written are supported by invoices, sales slips, or contracts. The following documents were also reviewed: transaction list by date, balance sheet, profit and loss, balance sheet, 2019 budget versus actual. The association is well served by those who volunteer their time to serve our members. David P. Conley, auditor. So, so we passed our annual audit too. So that is it from me. I'm going to pass this now on to, unless I see any questions right now, George Lee, who will go over our membership.
Hi, I'm George Lee, the membership chairperson. If we can see the first slide. Can you hear me, or?
Yes, George, go ahead.
Well, I don't see the slides.
It's in a 10-second delay. Please go ahead.
Okay, so currently we have 1,473 members. That's by dues paid through the year. If you look at the pie chart, 60% of our members have paid up for the current year of 2020, and 26% of our members paid in 2019, and we hope that they will come up to date with their dues soon. Then there are 10% who haven't paid since 2018, and back to the 4% who haven't paid since 2017. If you're not sure whether or not you have paid your dues, the announcement for this meeting indicated if your dues are up to date. So if you have not paid your dues for this year, 2020, please do so as soon as possible. Okay, next slide. Okay, I'm assuming you're seeing the bar graph. This is the EPRTA membership by the year. And you can see that basically our numbers are pretty steady. This year was 1473, last year was 1406, the year before that 1478. So basically we're holding our own. Okay, now the next slide, please. Okay, this is the membership update. In November 2019, we sent out 455 amnesty letters, and that resulted in 144 new current members. Amnesty letters are sent out in the fall when people have not as yet renewed their membership. So this year, we'll be sending out letters to anybody who has not paid up for 2020, who has previously paid in 2019, 18, and 17. At the end of that cycle, anybody who has not, from 2017, who has not renewed the membership will be dropped from our membership. In May 2020, 724 marketing letters were sent out to Eastham part-time residents. Basically, our administrator gets the information from the town about who has recently purchased a house in Eastham and is not a Eastham resident. And we send out letters to the newest purchasers, and also this year we actually sent out a sampling to some prior people and some of them actually did decide to sign up this year, so it seemed like a good idea to do that. So far we have 84 new members of this year, and 18 members were removed, 9 of whom are now full-time residents, and the others presumably no longer own a house in Eastham. Okay, 358 or 41% of our members paid their 2020 dues using PayPal. Now, that is the easiest way for us to collect dues, and we encourage everybody to use PayPal. If you're not sure how to do it, what you do is you go to our website, the EPRTA website. You do not need a PayPal account. All you have to do is say that you're going to pay with a debit or credit card, and you'll be, sending us your $20, and instantly you'll know that you are paid up for the current year. So we appreciate everybody who has not yet paid to go to PayPal and renew your membership. Okay, next slide. Okay, now at this point, especially with COVID, and we're not having personal meetings, it's very important that we have email to contact you. As you can see from our pie chart, almost everybody has given us a good email, 1,400 people, but there are 65 people who do not have email, or at least they have not told us they have email. So if you do have email, please let us know so we can contact you. And then there are 8 people who actually we have a bad email for. So please, if you're not receiving emails from us, contact us to make sure we have the current email for you. As far as the newsletter is concerned, again, over 1,000 of our members get the electronic delivery, which allows you then to share the newsletter with other people in your family or your friends. 427 people received their newsletter in the mail, and 35 people we say are unknown, which means that you have not given us a preference, and therefore we, by default, send it by the post office. So if you are interested in receiving the letter online and then being able to share it with others, we suggest that you let us know that you would like your newsletter delivered by electronic means, by email. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, George. Our newsletter, as Jen had mentioned, is we've gone down to 3 newsletters a year. We felt that economically, it was the best thing for us to do. We are just barely into that format, and I believe our next newsletter will be coming out sometime in the fall. Sue, how about nominations?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. We have a number of, I present first to you the nominees for the Board of Directors, followed by members of the board who are eligible and are running for re-election. And then in addition to that, we have 2 potential new members to the board. I'm very grateful that they've come forward. First of all, for President, Mary Pikars, Vice President, Hilda Maroli, Jennifer Keene for Treasurer again, and Secretary Carolyn Thurleman, who will renew as Secretary. Board of Directors who will need to be re-elected: Jean Tierney, George Lee, Greg Bowie, Barbara Reed, John Van Kusen, and myself, Sue Connor. 2 potential new members to the board, Robert Satelli and David Nielsen. I'd ask you now to please use the voting app and vote these members so that we can continue to serve all of you members. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much, Sue. Okay, moving on to the, shall I say, the meat of the meeting, so to speak. We're going into our guest section, and our first guest this evening is Jackie Beebe, our town administrator. I'm sure you know her well, either by YouTube or at the Elks Club. Jackie?
Hi, I'm now a YouTube star. Is that what you're telling me? So excited. I guess I don't want to speak first tonight. I just, as each speaker comes up, I'll introduce them. And I think first up is our fabulous library director, Deb DeJonker-Berry, to tell you a little bit about what library services are happening during this time and into the fall. And then we'll move to Jim for the 400, and then I'll come back and introduce you to our new finance director. Would that be acceptable?
That's perfectly fine.
I'm going to do cleanup and questions at the end.
Cleanup, okay. All right, Deb?
Hi, everyone. I am very happy to be here tonight. It all started because I emailed Carolyn and said I had a couple really wonderful things I wanted to get the word out to your members. And next thing I know, I'm on the agenda, and that's a great opportunity. I've got just a few slides, and I'm not going to talk about every single thing. I'm just going to give you a couple highlights, and you can read them all. But it's just talking a little bit about what we're doing and the many things that are available. And I'm on the next slide with the 4 boxes. And what are we doing behind the closed doors? And well, we're doing curbside, safe curbside, contactless curbside pickup. We're trying to follow the guidelines of the REALM study, which is a national study that's looking at where the virus is on different kinds of materials, how long it lingers, and things like that. So by doing the contactless, the staff is wearing masks and gloves, and material is quarantined to the appropriate time. And so you just call us, place holds. We call you when your material's in. Things are slower, but it's safe. And we're doing that for a little while longer. We're available 7 days a week by phone and email, answering questions and doing whatever we can to help. And we're collaborating, the Council on Aging and the Library and Historical Society and the 400, and I can just go on about all the collaboration that's going on. But most importantly, the area libraries are collaborating, and what we're trying to do is when we start bringing people back into the buildings, that we are doing it in some kind of a way that we're going to try and provide as comprehensive a service as we can. And of course, we're doing online programs, and the statistics on that, the children's programs on Facebook and Instagram, the numbers are unbelievable, thousands of views. And in some ways it rivals the in-person numbers, but of course it's not the same. But it's something, a skill we'll have for the future. The next slide is just quickly talking about curbside service. What you can do is you can ask us to put things in, like our book page. You can register online for a library card, get it right away, and have access to all the ebooks and the e-newspapers and the news service, the RV Digital, which has Acorn TV as part of it, and also the great courses. And we do put a newsletter in with every curbside pickup that just highlights new things and gives you ideas. And on the next slide, 30 Reasons to Love Your Clams library card. And I'll let you read that. But one thing that has nothing to do with the library card is that please remember that our Wi-Fi is available all around the property 24/7. And we see an awful lot of activity outside. And we also have wireless hotspots available to loan. And if somebody really needs a computer, we have Chromebooks to loan out. And we can do printing through curbside. We do art exhibits, and upcoming we have Rebecca, and that's one of her beautiful images. That's for the month of August. We have, maybe the timing is pretty good, Joel Goldstein is going to be doing a talk on September 17th about the vice presidency. And a pianist, Jackie Schwab, who does really well with Facebook Live, her concerts, on September 19th. And on the next slide, we want to try to get people to get out safely and also to engage in conversations either online or, at the dinner table. And so this FIAT program that one of our staff came up with during the serious lockdown, there's 6 paintings, images, including a wonderful one of a Native American powwow in our reading garden. And on our website, there's books that are associated with the themes of these different paintings, and books you can read, videos you can watch. So just a way for everybody to get together and maybe talk about some of these beautiful paintings and what they represent and what they might mean to you. And we're hoping in the fall to do some Zoom programs where people can, get together online and talk about these as well. On the next slide, the children's programming, and those are the numbers I was talking about with our online programming. Fran and Marianne, storytelling, pajama storytelling. The number of views is in the thousands, and I was just so impressed to see that they've done a really wonderful job taking their summer reading program online, and the learning curve to do that kind of thing. I'm still not there, but they did it. And they have a new grant from the Library Services and Technology Act for next summer to take, and it's totally wonderful because it's an outdoor program. They're going to do some pollinators programming and some small gardens in an effort to attract pollinators pondside. And on the next slide, this is really why I'm here. two things. One, you probably have all heard about the 400 commemoration and all the programming and that Jim will be talking about. But we got last year a Mass Humanities grant, and part of that allowed us to hire Dr. Ian Saxene from Bridgewater University, and he published a book for us, an 84-page book called The Story of the First Encounter at Nauset. And that is available. We gave copies away, the free copies of this book at the December 8th kickoff to the commemoration last year. The lines for the book were longer than the lines for the food, the free food. It was amazing. And so we had another batch of them printed. We had grant money left. And I wanted to make sure if any of the members want a copy of that, to give us a call. We can put it out in curbside or find another way to get a copy of that book to you. It's also available online, and you'll see that on our website, on the 400 website. And if you have someone who might be doing your landscaping or your cleaning, or someone you might know whose English is not their first language, we also published a Portuguese edition, and that is available online and in print. And then the other thing, just to quickly mention, is that next week on our website, you'll see this place to register for Hit and Run Histories Stefano. And that is the tale of Stephen Hopkins and Shakespeare's Tempest. And Stefano was a character in The Tempest. And it's always been the mystery of where was the Tempest set? And so this is the investigation of that story. It's going to be a documentary that about 2 weeks later is going to be shown live in Wellfleet at Preservation Hall. So if you want to join us on that live Zoom presentation, or just watch the producer, Andrew Buckley, talk about his upcoming film, I just think that's a really exciting opportunity. And so I just wanted to share that with you. Please come if you can. And we also have online various versions of The Tempest that if you want to watch it, because frankly, I haven't read it yet, and I've never read it. So it's on my to-do list for the weekend. And then on the next slide, I just want to let you know that the Turnip Festival will go virtual this year. And Marianne, I'm sure, will be out there with details for you all when she's ready. And that's it. I just want to thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Very interesting, Deb. Jim, how about the Eastham 400?
Well, good evening, and thank you for having me here on behalf of the Eastham 400 Commemoration Committee. We've been busy since we last met, and we've accomplished quite a bit. We have a good website that's pretty inclusive. It has quite a range of things that you'll get to experience. It has the history of the first encounter, and it talks of the Mayflower. It will show charts. You can go to the next slide. The trail that the Mayflower took from England to all the way to Plymouth, and it will show the detail there. We have quite a bit of information. As Deb said, the Ian Saxene story is on there. It's the full version, the short 12-page version, and the short version in Portuguese. So it's available for people to see. All of our event calendar is on there, which is jam-packed this summer with a number of things that have taken place. And there's also a number of things that you'll find that we've already done and we've archived and been able to put on there. There's also a news blog that is on there that we add to as we get new information, and can put some things on, such as the reconstruction and the rebuilding of the shallop that came to Eastham. So I think it's a replica, but from the Plymouth Patuxet, in formerly the Plymouth Plantation. It's theirs, and but there's a great story on it, and worth checking out. You can go to the next slide. we've done a lot of programming, and in 2019, we had our opening ceremony on the anniversary date, the 399th anniversary of the first encounter. And it started off with a service. It was done by one of our partners, the Nauset Interfaith service put it together. And it was a combination of different faith leaders and a Native American that gave a blessing and an extensive talk on what that blessing meant to the Native Americans. And it was quite moving. We had over 100 people that showed up. It was really a great time, very inspirational. And then later that day, we had a wonderful opportunity to get together with a number of presenters talking about the past, the present, and the future. And it was intermingled with both music from today and Native American music and dancing. And actually, a lot of us got to get up and dance, and they followed us. We went outside. It was a great time, and you ended up forming a circle, and it kind of helped complete the circle between the Native Americans that were here and us that have come after. So it was really quite a great time, and it was followed by an opportunity to try some Native American food and people to just mingle and spend some time with each other. So that was quite a success, and that closed out 2019. This year, we had all these wonderful intentions like everybody else, but coronavirus changed the way we conduct everything. And our impromptu and spontaneous presentations that we were going to do at First Encounter Beach, we were too worried about the safety and being able to pull it off. And so we pulled it all together, and I really have to say that it was Tom Ryan. This was his baby, both the Sunset series and the weekly Campfire series. And he has worked and still working very hard on getting these all together. There's 13 episodes of the Sunset series left to go. They air every night. There'll be another one that's posted onto the website. And if you go to the home page of the eastham400.org, it's very easy to find. It's in big bold letters. Go to the any of the videos, and you can. They're all archived there, from the very first one up until I think they're around 85 at the moment, or 86 that are posted on there, and you can go to any one of them. And they're also set up not just by date; they're also set up by topic. And the topics are wide-ranging. Some of it's historic, some of it talks about racism, talks about the indigenous species, it talks about religion, politics. It's is a wide range of things, and just examining different cultures. So it's quite an accomplishment, and in a sense, because we got to record this, we'll be able to have this, and it will end up in the library's archives for as long as we want. So we think that was a huge accomplishment, being able to actually record this. So something good came out of this Corona experience because it's all being recorded. The Campfire series was all recorded up until this last week, but it's going to be recorded again. We went live last week out on the green. We're going to do that over. The last one is this coming Sunday, and it's at 6 o'clock, I believe. And you can catch it. It's social distancing, and it's a great presentation. And I believe that they're going to record this one. So if you don't get to it, you'll be able to find it online. Next slide. next slide shows all those programs. If we go to the next slide is the publication of the story of the first encounter at Nauset. And as Deb told you, and I mentioned, that this is online now so that you can get it if you don't have a hard copy. But these have been greatly received, and we have an intent to get these distributed to the all of the high school students, and we'll get that done once they get back into school, or we find a way to get it to them. That's being worked out. We're working with the school system to do that. And next slide are things that we're looking into, doing to wrap this up and move this forward. We've done a number of things, but one of the things we want to do is see about updating the memorials. They're an item of contention in town, that the way they're worded and the way they're displayed, and it's they could use some updating. So we're going to examine that. We'll at least study it. Where it goes from there, I don't know. But we'll work with the town to see, what we can do, and get some people together and to examine exactly what it says and what the best approach is to update it and make them acceptable. This December 8th, we're going to have another get together for to commemorate the 400th, but this will be on the 400th, and part of it will be a morning, a sunrise service. It's going to be at 7 o'clock. Again, it's going to be put together by our partners, the Nauset Interfaith Association. We've invited the representative from the Wampanoags to join us. It's uncertain what we'll be able to do later as a community to recognize this, and all because of COVID. We're looking at doing something outside where we can, social distance, but there's a lot of ifs when it comes to putting it together, not knowing the weather and everything else, holding it outside, and for a big group. But we're going to see what we can put together, and we'll keep you posted on what happens. We post everything online. We send out e-blast, and you can follow us on Facebook on the Eastham 400 page. So. And the next slide is things to be done 2021 and beyond. There's still a number of things. We've talked about the monuments that are existing and what to do, but there's talk about working on the town seal and possibly an exhibit, a town hall exhibit, to see if that's appropriate. These are things that we can work on in the future, because the history does go on. One of the things that's still in the works is the symphony at the Cape Cod National Seashore over at Salt Pond Visitor Center. That's still on track. It was postponed from this August. It would have been this Friday, and it hopefully we'll be able to do that next year in August. The Eastham Historical Society has a wonderful 400 exhibit, and they're hoping that they'll be able to put that out this year. They've done a tremendous job with their speaker series, a lot of it having to do with the 400, and that's been exciting. The Shallop visit we had to forget about because of COVID and not being able to social distance. There's a possibility of it coming this winter. I don't know, because last I heard that the grant that is being used to restore the shallop up in Amesbury is for a student work study and teaching students how to shipbuild, and that's how they got the money to restore it. Well, they can't do it safely, and so that's on hold. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. We had hoped to participate this on December 8th with the Yarmouth Chamber, who was doing the sail on by day, and that's because the shallop had sailed on by, although they had intended to go up into that area. So they wanted to get involved with it. We thought it was a good way to possibly bring it here for the morning of December 8th when it was here. And that's, again, until we get some final answers, we just don't know what's going to happen with that. Some of the other things that we're working on a memorial site. We've raised some money, and hopefully that will be used to build that site and make that a reality. There's some work to be done on the site. Town's working to get permission for the property that we had identified. And there's also going to be a wampum exhibit at the library, which is, going to be really special because that doesn't, these are very valuable items for them and the museum pieces, and they don't let them out very easily. So we're pretty excited to be able to do that. The next slide talks about our long-term benefits, and I think the idea that we're able to archive so much of this is really something that will be great for the community, for using for study aids for students, and for going back and re-examining where we've been and what we're doing. So, and we've been doing great, and want to continue doing great with our commemoratives. They've been really well received. We have them up at the information booth, and as well as in my office. There are 3 sisters, and we sell them online. But I'll tell you, putting that rack outside the information booth has drawn a lot of people in, and it's really good. People are excited to see it's there, and so that's pretty much where we're at. We're having a great time. It's been a wonderful experience for everybody on the committee. Everybody's worked so hard. Each committee member, and of course Deb DeJunker-Berry is right there with us. She's as much ahead of this team as anybody, and between her and Tom, we've really put together a tremendous amount. We have other people working on different things. The shallop that was built by the Cape Associates that was supposed to be used for a raffle. It's hard to raffle right now, so but we'll work on that. We're also doing a cancellation stamp that we'll have for December 8th. So we're looking forward to that. So with that, I thank you very much for having me. If I can take any questions at any time, or you want to email me, you can. You can just go to the Eastham 400 site and email through that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Very interesting, and we're looking forward to what's yet to come. Okay, Jackie, I think you're up for cleanup.
Thank you. So now I just wanted to, Rich hasn't prepared anything for you, but I did want to introduce you all to our new Assistant Town Administrator, Finance Director, Rich Bienvenu. And Rich is basically, he comes to us with an amazing amount of experience. He's a CPA. He was a municipal auditor for many years. And most recently, he was the jack of all trades. No, the finance director, operations director, and IT director for Yarmouth. He wore several hats. They just kept giving him more, so I stole him for us. So I just wanted you to connect a face with a name, and Rich can wave virtually to you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Rich. And then next up is our auspicious police chief, Adam Bohannon. You might know Adam as our deputy chief because he was for many years, and he was promoted earlier this year. Adam and I often joke that basically Ed Kulhawick, our former chief, had the best timing of any retiree on the planet because his last day was February 28th, and 15 days later, literally all hell broke loose. So Adam started as our new chief with COVID-19 and has just been doing an amazing job. But anyway, I wanted you to meet him, and he will introduce himself and tell you a little bit more about himself.
Good evening, everyone. I wish we could meet in person right now. I'd much rather do it that way, but I recognize some of you, I've met some of you, and some of you are meeting for the first time. So it's nice to meet everyone. Just a little bit about myself real quick. I actually started working here in 1997. I did the crazy job of directing traffic in front of the Eastham Post Office on Route 6. And I always like to joke, I survived that for a few summers. So with that, I was promoted and given a full-time job as a patrolman here in Eastham. I've held several positions on the department throughout the years: patrol officer, detective, detective sergeant, most recently deputy chief, and then I was promoted in February to chief. I'm a lifelong resident of Eastham. I grew up in Eastham, attended the Nauset schools. I still live in Eastham with my wife and 2 kids. My kids are attending the Nauset schools in some degree this fall. We'll see how that works out. But with my promotion, with Chief Kulhawick's retirement and my promotion, we had some other movement here on the department. Sergeant Dan Deschon was promoted to deputy chief. Sergeant Gus Schnitzer was promoted to lieutenant. We promoted a new sergeant, Sergeant Daigle. Detective Andy Murphy was reassigned to the detective division from the patrol division, and we hired a new officer, Officer Victoria Wagner, who is also grew up in Eastham, moved away for a time, and is back with us. So, not just that list, but from top to bottom here on the department, I'm blessed with a very strong team, and that makes my job a lot easier coming in as a new chief, especially during this time where things are a little bit upside down right now. I just want to make a couple of points real quick. I'll be brief because I know there's a bunch of people, to talk after me, but we strive to have a professional, well-educated, specifically well-trained police department here in Eastham. We've been blessed with a lot of support from the town over the years in increasing our training budget, and we're at a point now where we send all of our officers to some very in-depth training, and I think we have some of the best trained police officers on Cape Cod. So, and that's extremely important, obviously. We focus a lot on community policing. We like to be involved in our community. We do a lot in the schools. We host citizens police academies. We like to go out and have a cup of coffee with the public during the day, and just anything we can do to interact with the public, hear what the needs are, introduce ourselves, and get to know the public on a more personal level. Some of the officers here right now are knocking on my door almost every day. When can we get back involved? When can we have our citizens police academy? I almost have to hold them back at this point a little bit. So that's a good problem to have as well, because I have some very motivated officers when it comes to community policing. Hiring is also another big focus for us. It starts at that point. We go to great lengths to make sure that we're hiring the right people to work here. We require a bachelor's degree to work here at the Eastham Police Department. So that's a bit of a high standard to meet right off the top, and we go through quite a interview process, background process, and before we actually offer somebody a job. So we like to think we're hiring the best candidates available, and then we're training them with some of the best training available as well. Our officers are instructed, and will continue to be instructed, to aggressively enforce the laws to keep the community safe. But we ask them to do that with fairness and compassion to the community, and using discretion, when that's applicable. some quick stats regarding some aggressive enforcement that also involves some discretion. I get statistics every month of our motor vehicle enforcement. For July 2020, I get statistics back 7 years for every month. So I got July 2020 and the Julys for the previous 7 years. July 2020 was our second highest amount of traffic stops in the last 7 years for July. And we had the lowest amount of car crashes in the last 7 years for the month of July in 2020. However, we're not issuing a lot of civil fines right now for speeding and other violations because our officers are using discretion. They understand that it's a tough time for a lot of people, but just the visibility of stopping cars, talking to people, educating them on the laws, and that's clearly working, which is evident in the statistics. One other quick area I wanted to touch on, I think this is appropriate given the discussion around our state and across the country now regarding police reform. We are one of the 4 police departments on Cape Cod that is accredited under the Mass Police Accreditation Commission. There's 2 levels of accreditation. There's full accreditation and there's certification, which is the step below. We have certification level at this time. And what that means is we're presented with a list of standards that we need to meet, mostly with our policies and procedures that we issue to the officers. But there's also requirements for our building, requirements for our equipment, requirements to ensure that we're following all the standards that are given to us. So we are at the certification level, and we have been for about 5 or 6 years. We've committed, and I've talked to Jackie about this, and she's given her support to it to move forward as quickly as we can to try to achieve full accreditation, which means meeting more standards and having more policies, in-depth policies in place for our officers. We're in a little bit of a holding pattern right now because whatever police reform comes out of this legislation will affect what the standards for accreditation are. So once we're presented with those standards, we'll start moving towards it. And our goal is within the next 2 years to be a fully accredited police department, which would, right now, we would be one of 3 fully accredited police departments on Cape Cod. So that's something we're proud of and something that we intend to move forward to. That's really all I have right now. I'm going to hang on the meeting through the whole evening. So I'm happy to take any questions at the end. And thank you for listening, and nice to meet all of you.
Thank you, Adam. I forgot to introduce the elected officials that were here, and Amy Ekman just texted me. She's gotten bumped off the call a couple of times, so she's listening. She's gone, but I'm very sorry that she wasn't here to introduce earlier. She was at our June meeting too. But we also have a new selectman that was elected in May, Art Arterino, and Art comes to the board with a lot of experience on the planning board. He was also the vice chair of the strategic planning committee. And I know I'm forgetting something else, Art, but if you want to say a couple of words, feel free.
Well, thank you very much for letting me attend the meeting. I'm a past PERTA member a number of years ago before I moved here full time. I was I was chairman of the planning board, chairman of strategic planning. I volunteer for Cape Cod National Seashore. I'm the treasurer of the Historical Society. I'm also on IFA as a mammal rescue person, and have been on a number of other committees. I'm on the board of directors of Nauset Lake Preservation Society. One of the things I would like to say thank you for is your contribution you made this year to EHS and Nauset Lake Preservation Society. We really appreciate that. It's been a hard year because the Historical Society museums are shut down and we can't do tours of the lighthouse. So anything helps, we really appreciate it. My email is, I think, easthampbos5. So any questions you have or any issues or anything you want to get in touch with me, more than willing to try and answer and do anything I can. But thank you very much for letting me participate.
Thank you very much for being here, Art.
And that's something your members should know. On our website, if you click on the Board of Selectmen's names, you will get the link to their email addresses, so you can easily contact them that way. Next up is our DPW Superintendent Silvio Janau. And I think you've met Silvio before. I'm not sure. He's been with us a couple of years, but I honestly can't remember whether he was at last year's meeting. He was not. I didn't ask him to come in June. Silvio comes with a lot of experience. Like Rich, he worked for the towns of Nantucket, Barnstable, and Plymouth. He is a licensed engineer and he has a master's in public administration. So he's really professionalized the DPW and done a lot of work for us. And so he is next up to talk, I believe, about some private road issues. Silvio, are you with us?
I am. Thank you very much for that introduction. I really appreciate it. Good to see everybody again. I was at a meeting, I think it was last year in the summertime.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. With Brian Karlstrom and the Fire Chief, Kent Farrenko. Anyways, thank you again, everybody. I'd like to start by again, thanking you for the opportunity to discuss such an important but often misunderstood topic, road ownership and private roads. So in the brief time we have to discuss this, I will focus on discussing the different types of ownership, some of the characteristics associated with each of those types of roads, and what the town is doing to be a good partner to our residents and homeowners living on private roads. So without further ado, let's begin with types of roads by ownership. There's many types of roads, but today we will focus on public ways and private ways so that we can help illustrate the similarities and distinctions between the two. So public ways, this includes obviously state highways, county roads, and town roads. State highways are laid out in accordance with a process outlined in Mass General Law, Chapter 81, and maintained by the state. And when I mean laid out is that's the process basically to go from a road that's been used in a certain way to legally saying this is a public way or private way, et cetera, and basically creating plans for that road. So laying out a road is not just building it, it's basically the legal process to make that road either a public way or a private way. So in Massachusetts, we also don't have many county roads since counties were abolished. But in those towns that do have them, fortunately, maintenance is usually a state/municipal hybrid responsibility. So town roads. Town roads are laid out following a different set of rules that are detailed in Mass General Law, Chapter 82. In summary, this involves a very public process where the select board, usually acting as road commissioners, lays out a road and asks for plans to be drawn specifically to show its boundaries. Those plans are then sent to the planning board for review and for them to make their recommendation. They're then filed with the town clerk sometime prior to town meeting, where then you or the residents finally, discuss whether to approve the town road or not. Similar process is used for a private road that wants to be taken or converted from private to public. So the terminology for changing a private road to a public way is a taking. So the road is taken and converted into a public way. So maintenance. Mass General Law also has specific requirements that municipalities have to follow for public ways. And it's, quote, to provide reasonably safe and convenient travel. Additionally, is that snow must be removed or trodden down so as to keep such ways in reasonably safe and convenient status for travel. But pretty much that's it. It doesn't speak anymore in regards to maintenance, and it's kind of a broad scope, but that's what allows the town then to go patch a pothole, to trim the roadsides, and to do all the things that we do in the DPW to maintain road safety. The town is also allowed to remove whatever obstructs public ways or endangers, hinders, or incommodes persons traveling on said public ways. So why am I bringing this up? Because now we're going to talk about private ways, and you'll see how they relate to each other. So one of the probably the most asked question when it comes to private ways is, who owns private ways? So basically in Massachusetts, unless it's specifically stated on the property deed, abutters typically own to the middle of the road. Saying, so for example, you and your neighbor live across the street from each other, so you would own from your property line to the middle of the road and vice versa. That way, the whole width of the road is the responsibility of every neighbor who lives on that road. Sometimes, the developer who created a subdivision retains fee title of the road or ownership of the road. But situations vary, and Massachusetts being such an old state, there's a variety of things that make private roads private roads. So our suggestion would be to residents to begin looking at their deeds and maybe find some information there. If not, contact the town, and we will most likely tell you by saying, well, it's not a road we maintain, so it must be a private road. So by default, if it's not a town road or a public way, it is a private road. So the town is not liable to those who lose access if a private road is closed off by the owner. So this is, again, another topic that comes up every once in a while, and the town has no jurisdiction on how the property owners decide to use the road. But the problem is that owners cannot block access to those with rights or easements on that road. So before a group of residents decides to block a road or put a gate or something like that, you should always get together with your fellow neighbors and discuss that. But again, for Mass General Law, this would be a private dispute and the town does not get involved. Additionally, municipal utilities like the water project that we're working on right now cannot be installed on private roads without an easement. So that's why the town has diligently been talking to all the residents living on private roads and on obtaining easements before we move forward. Also, owners with rights of access on these private roads have also have rights to install their own private utilities to serve their properties. And finally, the town cannot require a private way to be kept open unless it is what it's called a statutory private way. These are roads that were laid out following the public way process that I previously mentioned, but remained in private ownership, which, again, reasons for that could be that a developer came in and said, I want to lay out the road to the same standard that the town does, but I want to retain ownership, or I want to make sure that the neighbors retain ownership, which is their right to do so. So why doesn't the town maintain private ways? Well, the simple answer is that these roads are not maintained by the town because usually they're not laid out using the process that I previously explained. Additionally, municipalities cannot typically spend public funds for private purposes. And Mass General Law allows only 3 exceptions. Number 1 is for snow removal. Number 2 is to provide temporary repairs to roads and sidewalks, with the caveat that after those repairs have been made, the road must be open to the public. And 3, to provide drainage improvements, but only on certain occasions and usually related to repairs to the road. These exemptions also are only allowed after a municipality adopts a bylaw following Mass General Law, Chapter 40, which Eastham has already done. So the question is then, if we have a bylaw, why are we looking to update it at town meeting? And again, the simple answer is because the existing language of the bylaw is now outdated and restricts the residents from using it as it was originally intended. So currently, Mass General Law requires a temporary repairs to private roads bylaw to include 5 important topics. Number 1, it has to limit the type and extent of repairs. Number 2, it has to allow repairs only if the select board determines that they are necessary. Number 3, it only allows repairs if only a set amount of abutters sign a petition for those repairs to be made. Number 4, it allows the town not to be held liable and obtain written indemnification from the owners. And number 5 must require a cash deposit and cost recovery through betterments. So now that we've gone through the 5 steps, so what does our current bylaw have? Well, it allows for a certain type of limits and extents of the repairs, but it just limits them to $5,000 in value. So obviously, $5,000 is a very low limit that doesn't allow for even minor repairs to be completed. So that's the first step right there. That's the first block right there. The second topic that we have is that it has to serve at least 25 or more residences or businesses. So some of our neighborhoods don't even have 25 houses in the neighborhood. So all of a sudden now that neighborhood does not qualify. The most restrictive one from my point of view is that it requires 100% of the owners to sign the petition. This means that all it takes is one abutter to be against the project for the application to fail. So you can have 99 households for the project and one household can just stop the entire process. And the last thing is that it requires a 50% deposit, which at that point, it might be more practical for the residents to just collect the entire $5,000, hire a contractor directly to make the repairs, and just avoid the paperwork involved with applying to the town. So as we can see, based on that, there's a bylaw there, but it needs some tweaking to be brought up to our current standards and for us to be able to help the residents. So what are our proposed changes? Number one, we propose to raise the limit of the repair costs to $100,000. This will allow more comprehensive repairs to be done, such as overlays on roads, drainage, pothole patching, things of that nature. We would lower the minimum amount of residences and businesses to be served to only 10. So that way the smaller neighborhoods can also take advantage of the private roads bylaw. We would then change the requirement to the signature requirement to a supermajority of owners, basically 2/3. Instead of going from 100 or a 50+1, which also has its own problems, just a simple majority, we would require a supermajority. That way, we know that there is a real intent from the neighbors of the road to proceed with the project. We will also change the deposit amount to a fee not to exceed $500. This will allow us to collect that fee and take our time and move forward with all the paperwork, with giving you the proper technical assistance that we need, but also not break the bank. Instead of the 50%, which would have been $2,500. The bylaw, one of the most important topics is that the bylaw will establish a clear process to apply for the program. This will make it easier for both the town and the residents to understand every step of the process, where they are and what they should be expecting. And finally, one of the probably the most important part of the private roads bylaw is that it will establish a clear process for cost recovery that will be based on the proposed final betterment that will be assessed to each property. So this will give each resident of this private road a clear amount that they will be required to pay and how long they will have to pay. And we created a tiered approach based on the amount of the repairs, so that some repairs we will require residents to pay over 5 years, some we will require to pay over 10 years. But again, it will give you as residents the benefit necessary to say, I can make these repairs and maybe I don't have this kind of money right now, but over 10 years, I may be able to afford that and make it enticing for the residents to use the program. So we believe that these changes will help us better serve you guys living on private roads in a way that doesn't break the bank, but also takes advantage of the technical knowledge and the support staff of that the town staff can provide to you. As Jackie mentioned earlier, I'm a professional engineer both in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I have about 15 years of experience in road construction and road repairs. So by having me on board, I would like to be able to help not only residents living in public ways, but also the residents living on private ways, and making sure that every taxpayer takes advantage of that. Also, we have staff that has been building roads for over 30 years, and they do the inspections for the private roads for the plowing. They do the inspection for the private roads when we have calls about potholes and things of that nature. So we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to provide that support and technical knowledge through the proper channels. So that's all I have. I'd like to thank you all again for giving me the opportunity to discuss this topic, and please feel free to reach out to us at the DPW with any questions relating to this topic or anything else where you could think we could be of assistance. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Silvio. Very interesting.
And
Jackie.
Helen, if I can, I wanted to follow up a little because Silvio and I just met with the residents of Thoreau Drive, and I know that that was a concern of some of the members because it was a situation that was in the Cape Cod Times, and frankly, it was a new situation to Silvio and I've worked for the town for 6 years, and I've heard of private utilities in terms of telephone poles, but not necessarily an entire subdivision or half of a subdivision that has a private utility that Eversource thinks they own. So we're doing a lot of research into that. That subdivision was created in 1964, and so that utility's hung on for a lot of years, but we're not sure we can use this new bylaw to do a utility upgrade. So we're reaching out to Sarah Peak, our representative, and our Senator Julian Sear, and trying to figure out what we need to do to apply this betterment situation and be able to assist those 17 to 20 homes that are affected by this. We're also, Silvio and I are reaching out to Eversource to get clear maps from Eversource of what is public, what is private, so we can kind of, because I've gotten some calls from private road owners saying, do I have this situation? I don't even know. And the truth is the town doesn't know unless we go back and dig through a lot of documents, and how would we know where they are? So I think we're going to try and get from Eversource that information to be able to identify, is this a problem that 10 roads have, or is this a problem that 30 roads have? At this point, we don't know. But I just wanted to reassure you that we will be working with that neighborhood, trying to get them some assistance and help them through whatever process we need to do to get that electric utility upgraded to code and turned over to Comcast in the future. So, I guess next up, we also had one road question I can do now. Does the town of Eastham have any plans to even out the edges of the manholes on Route 6? As Silvio sort of alluded to, Route 6 is a state highway. So we just had DOT down today. Silvio was out on the road with Amy Ekman and the DOT looking at the new Hawk beacon and how treacherous kind of that is, because we're just not sure there's enough time. Oh, I'm sorry, Adam, Chief Bohannon was also out. There's not enough time between when you press the button and when cars stop, and it's more dangerous now than we anticipated. So we're trying to fix that problem. But the manhole covers and their drainage system is their drainage system, and we've complained about it for years. When we resurfaced the water, we fixed as much as we could, and we had some high edges on some of our covers, and we fixed those, but we weren't able to, it's really tilted. We weren't able to do their drainage, and that's what you hit when you're driving along, and it is terrible. They are planning on doing a total resurfacing of Route 6. I don't know if Silvio has any idea when, but they are making real strides to it. They keep sending people down. We've seen some plans of intersections and stuff. So we're hopeful that within our lifetime, we will get that road fixed. So that's the road question that I've answered. And then I think we can move on to the Community Development Director, Town Planner Paul Lag, who's going to pick up with some of our larger planning initiatives, and I think capture a couple of concerns that people have expressed about what's up with the Tea Time property and what's up with Route 6 in general and our plans for Route 6. And I want to agree with the first question on the list. Yes, it is awful that we haven't taken down the Tea Time building. We are setting a bad example for the community, and Silvio has promised me that it's coming down this September. We just simply didn't have the staff this summer, but we are getting to it, we promise. Paul? That was a great intro for Paul.
Thank you, Jackie. Good evening, everyone. It's delighted to be here with you again. Just going to give you an update on three initiatives here in town. And I got some slides we can all see and follow along with. I'm going to jump to slide 2, which talks about the 5-year strategic plan. So the 5-year strategic plan was completed last year and adopted by the select board. It was the result of a lot of hard work on behalf of the strategic plan committee and working in with staff and boards and committees throughout the town and feedback from the community. And the plan, it's available online. There's a link to it on the strategic plan committee website, webpage. It's really, I look at it as a playbook for the town and how we look at and allocate funds and staff resources and other resources to the next 5 years. It's a guide for the staff to kind of vet opportunities that come through town hall, and it's really helpful that in my work to have this kind of document, because I get a lot of phone calls, a lot of folks coming in with ideas and opportunities, and it's nice to have this resource to kind of look through and say, is this an opportunity that makes sense for the town? Should we look into it further, or is it really just not in the plan for the next 5 years? So it's really, I look at it as something that we doesn't sit on the shelf, but we utilize and refer to actively. And I know that the strategic plan committee will continue to have a role in helping vet different projects and keep the plan active. So just briefly, just the structure of the plan. It's organized around some overarching principles, which talk about protecting and honoring Eastham's history and our small town identity, living in harmony with the natural environment and honoring our local culture, and really enhancing the vibrancy of our community and making sure it's a welcoming and inclusive place for folks of all ages. So the plan has several strategies to try to implement these principles, and again, they revolve around environmental protection, community character, fostering diversity, and supporting affordable housing. And each strategy has a number of action items which are have been created to implement each strategy. And the action items are assigned to specific departments and specific staff, and it also identifies supporting departments and supporting committees and commissions and so forth. We've established annual metrics to measure our progress on an annual basis. The metrics are included in the plan itself. And just the status here, again, we're in year 1. I think we're making good progress. There's several action items that are underway in a number of categories. And again, this kind of ranges the whole gamut from environmental, wastewater, roads, economic development, land use development, so forth. And the next 2 topics will link in. I'll show you how we're linking this into our strategic plan. So again, we're working on working on all cylinders to implement this, and we're trying to get a good reporting mechanism up that will be readily accessible to the public, so folks can see as progress is made on the plan, how we start to check off some of the boxes. So again, the strategic plan, it's a great guide. I'm going to go to the next slide here, talk about the Route 6 corridor study. So our approach here in Eastham has really been to take a comprehensive approach to our whole planning efforts here. And Route 6, the corridor study, was something that we started a little over a year ago. The objective is really to look at the roadway itself, the corridor, look at ways we can upgrade and enhance the safety and the access to and from businesses along there, and get some safety upgrades for pedestrians and bicycles. Silvio from the DPW is working with me closely on this, and we are working with our colleagues at the Cape Cod Commission and their transportation team to look at the corridor. The work done to date, we've done traffic data analysis and data collection. We had a public listening session back in February of 2019 where we got a lot of good feedback from folks about what they see, pros and cons with the roadway, suggestions. We are working very closely with Mass DOT. As Jackie mentioned earlier, it is their roadway, and at the end of the day, we need to work with them, and any improvements that we recommend, we have to work with them, and it ultimately has to get approved by the state. So we're working very closely with them on this whole effort, each step of the way, to make sure that we don't carry forth any recommendations that are just going to be non-starters with the state. So we want to make good progress. So right now we're in developing some concepts. I'll share a couple of highlights here. We were looking at the whole roadway throughout the whole town, but after we talk with the state, more realistically, we're looking at the area between Massasoit Road and just north of the Tea Time property. That's a stretch of highway that we think we can get some significant improvements on in the near term. I won't say what the near term is exactly, but sooner than later, I guess, to be evasive about it. That's something that we think that Mass DOT would commit to working with us to get some solid improvements there in that stretch to begin with. And that is right in our main commercial district. So it makes a lot of sense to focus on that. At this point, we're really looking at retaining the two lanes, north and southbound, but introducing a landscaped median to provide some protection there. The landscape median would also allow us to install some protective left turn pockets to make left turns a lot safer and more controlled and concentrated at specific areas. Sidewalks on both sides of the highway are, I think from our perspective in the town, essential. We need to have sidewalks added to both sides and improved on both sides. That may or may not include what we call a multi-use path, which could be a little bit wider to accommodate pedestrians and bicycles. We're also looking at potential roundabouts on Route 6, specifically at the Tea Time property. I'll speak more about that in a moment, and possibly at the Route 6 Massasoit Road connection. And the other element of this study is looking at the potential for a new frontage road or access road, which would go parallel to Route 6 and connect from Brackett up to the Tea Time property. This has been talked about a lot over the years, off and on. So while that's not directly under the purview of the state, that would be a town local issue. The planning and logistics for the connection to the Route 6 are an important part. So we're including that as part of this Route 6 corridor study. So I think the next slide is just some graphics, probably hard to make out here, but just this, an outline of the project corridor that we're looking at for North Eastham. There's also a draft concept sketch about potential roundabout for at the connection at the Tea Time property. I'm going to speak more about that on the next topic when I talk about specifically on Tea Time, but just a graphic for you guys to get a sense visually of how that might work. So on the next slide, next steps on the Route 6 corridor study. Again, we were delayed a bit with COVID. We were hoping we would have been reaching out to the public, doing some more meetings over the last spring. That didn't happen, and we're just using the time to really revise and revise our concept plans. But going forward, I'm going to be working on some sort of video presentation that we can post onto the website and onto Facebook, just to give an overview of where we are so far, explain the next steps, and then hopefully resume some virtual public meeting in some format in November. And I think we're going to try to do something where it's, obviously virtual, but maybe have a little more interactive give and take with the participants and get some feedback, and we'll be showing at that point some concept development renderings. And final recommendation in a report with the recommendations for what we see for the corridor. That's on board for the beginning of the new year. And again, and this will be ongoing implementation in lead with the overall strategic plan and tea time, which I will talk about in a minute. Again, just want to reiterate the sort of comprehensive approach that we try to take with our planning efforts. Trying to use it with the strategic plan. So the plan definitely has some specifics on Route 6, most notably to implement the findings and recommendations of the Route 6 corridor study. These on the next slide, these are all pulled directly from the strategic plan. So we want to action items that talk about creating connectivity between the businesses on Route 6 to improve traffic safety and pedestrian access, but also hopefully to foster some land use redevelopment and sharing of infrastructure along that stretch. And also the strategic plan talks about implementing the Complete Streets initiative. Complete Streets is another plan that we have through the state. It allows the town to access certain funds to upgrade our local roads and make them more accessible for bike and pedestrian and multimodal access. So while Route 6, unfortunately, is the state highway and we cannot use those funds, but we are looking to implement them at key locations on our town roads, such as Brackett and Massasoit, where if we make these proposed improvements, we'll be able to use some of the Complete Streets funds to make the connections on the local roads. I'm just going to jump to the next slide and talk about the Tea Time properties. This is an exciting opportunity for the town. I'm sure we're all familiar with the location right on Route 6, the former driving range. It's a 10.86 acre property right on Route 6. I'm sure we all drive by it every day. But it's also located right in the heart of our commercial area and in what we call the Eastham Corridor Special Zoning District. The district, as a zoning district, was created in 2018, specifically to give us some regulatory tools and create some incentives for property owners and businesses in that area that can help with property redevelopment, and again, aimed at protecting our local community character, supporting housing and mixed-use development, and hopefully bolstering the local economy, and all with the intent that it's done in a way that preserves the community character and the architecture, and in a way that will fit in with the town. So the town did purchase it in 2019 with the intent to set up a community process and decide the best use for it. The select board has appointed the Tea Time Redevelopment Committee. There's 11 members. It's a great cross-section of the community. We have business owners, local residents. We got a good spectrum of ages on the committee. And so that group is meeting monthly. And the game plan is really to identify 2 or 3 viable options and make recommendations to the select board on how to utilize the property. So they've been meeting for a few months now. The committee, I'm a liaison along with Jackie to the committee, and they've really broken themselves up into some sub-work groups just to facilitate the work a little better. So there's a community development work group, an economic development, and an infrastructure work group. And so right now those groups are really in fact-finding mode. They're doing some analysis and reaching out to a lot of folks in town, a lot of agencies, a lot of regional and local agencies and organizations, looking at arts and culture groups, environmental groups, housing advocates, just to get a sense of what is out there and how this property could best serve the needs of Eastham and the Outer Cape as a region. So that's the work that's going on right now. Again, to tie it back to the strategic plan, This property is really a blank canvas. It's 10.8 acres of flat ground, and it could really be any number of things. So the committee is really trying to use the strategic plan as a starting place. We don't want to limit our imaginations, but we're trying to keep things realistic. And so there's some specific items. I'm going to jump to the next slide here. There's some specific items in the strategic plan that we think make logical sense as starting points. And the plan really for the starting points for the property, the strategic plan specifically calls out the need for a community center and opportunities to expand the recreational after-school programs and community-wide programs. And so we think the property might make sense for some sort of community center and likely, you know, senior center, community center, something that works for all ages. So we're using that as a starting point. But again, going back to the strategic plan, there's action items that talk about economic development, redevelopment, affordable housing. So all of these things are basically on the table at this point, and the committee is just really trying to vet the options, see what makes sense, what could be supported physically on the site, but also what the needs are in the community. So the next steps are we're hoping to do a market study for the Outer Cape to see what's existing for different businesses and different uses in the town in the Outer Cape, to see if there's a need, something that could be supportive on that. So we're talking about things like, you know, do we do a community center that has entrepreneurial space to help foster local businesses? Do we do maker space? You know, how do we combine these things into a plan for the town, for the property? I think an important piece to have in mind for what the committee is trying to do is to really get a vision once we kind of get these 2 or 3 viable options, but then work on a visioning exercise of how do these things work together physically on the spot, on the space, and how can we really have a vibrant kind of community village center that utilizes the space effectively and kind of mixes these things in an appropriate design that you know, is in harmony with the character of the town. So that's going to be an important piece that we're really going to be looking for feedback from the community as a whole when we get to that point. So we haven't really fleshed that out, what the next kind of public input piece is. We're just, again, in fact-finding mode. I just want to go back to the slide on the roundabout. Just I'd mentioned that, again, this is kind of where all of these things overlap. And so it's going to be an important part of these 2 projects to be coordinated in some fashion, because whatever gets developed ultimately on the Tea Time property is going to impact traffic in and out onto Route 6. And at this point, we really think the roundabout is the most viable option and facilitates the traffic nicely in and out of the site. The advantage now that we own the property, we could do this roundabout and really utilize some of the property for the layout and avoid any takings of the private properties on the other side. And it really wouldn't take up too much space, just a little bit, if you can picture, not too far in from where the old buildings are. So I think we're trying to accommodate the infrastructure with the highway project along with the Tea Time plans. So there's going to be kind of 2 major projects that are on parallel tracks, and they really need to be coordinated, and that's going to be part of the efforts in the coming months and years, hopefully sooner than later. So, but I think it's really helpful that we now own this property and we can utilize it. It's really going to make it a lot easier to push it with the state if we decide to go with the roundabout. So I just wanted to touch base on that. And again, 3 major projects. We try to take a comprehensive approach, link it all back to the strategic plan so that there's a method to the madness, so to speak. And I think we're doing a good job carrying that out. I look forward to making some further progress this coming winter, getting back on track with some of our project goals for Route 6. So I think that's all I had, and I'll happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
Jackie.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Helen. So I don't want to take up, I know we're getting close to the end of our time, and I don't want to, we've been talked at for a long time now, so I don't want to get crazy with my remarks, but I just want to cover a couple of things. Town meeting is now September 26th. It's a Saturday. It'll be all day on the football fields, starting at 10 a.m. If any of you would like to come and watch, I'm sure we'll have some seating available for non-voters. We're going to have a pre-town meeting on the 10th of September from 6 to 8. It will be virtual. We'll go through all the articles. Generally, it gives us a sense of where people's concerns and questions are. So we'll be doing that, and I can send that out to you guys, the link, so that you can participate if you want to. And then I just wanted to group some articles together so you can see, have a sense of where we're going this town meeting. So one of the first most important things is the Nauset Regional High School project for $134 million. That has been postponed. It's not on our fall warrant. They don't exactly know when it'll be brought forward. They're thinking in May, but I don't know exactly. So that's an important thing that's not going to be decided this fall. A couple of budget items grouped would be our operating budget is in the warrant. It's a slight reduction from last year, even with debt, because of some of the changes that we've made. So that's good news. We are splitting out water operations into a new water enterprise fund budget. So that'll be a little bit different. Our water system is growing. We have 1,400 customers now. So we're starting to think of that and start to spin it off as an actual entity in and of itself. That will allow us to put all the operating and future capital expenses into that system, as opposed to coming back to the taxpayers in the general fund. A significant one is that our capital plan does include a $400,000 override that would be for recurring capital funding. So we're looking at getting a $400,000 each year specifically dedicated to capital, and because of some of our unmet capital needs. And the first year of that would be towards upgrading all the police radios and our 911 system console. Very important. We are a public safety agency in terms of we do both fire and police 911 calls. So we have to have our system be able to speak to other systems. So that's an important upgrade. This year we are in the 10th year, so we have revamped the charter. So there are some charter changes, which is interesting. A couple of environmental things. We are on the warrant is a plastic ban, a plastic bottle ban. So there's two separate articles. One is a townwide plastic ban, which is supported and came from the Conservation Commission initially. And I'm sorry, but only in Eastham. I am hearing coyotes and screech owls now outside of my window. And the plastic bottle ban was a petitioned article, which may or may not go forward, a little more controversial. And we have some renewable energy options in our capital plan this year. We're going for some grants for some electric charging stations, one at Town Hall, one at the library, that would be available to people with electric cars who need charging, and 2 electric cars for our inspectional vehicles. And then the normal, the zoning article that Silvio talked about really revamps and gives us a new tool to be able to help private road owners deal with ongoing maintenance costs and help them to organize and have a process to actually fund that. CPA articles, as you're used to, idea this year is for the refurbishment of the outside of Town Hall. Town Hall is a historic building, and we're looking to pep up the outside and do a lot of replacements of worn fascia boards and drainage and all kinds of things. Also, adding a housing coordinator. This is a request from the Affordable Housing Trust. And there's other CPA articles, but nothing particularly environmental this year. And then basically the package, the article that I'm most proud of and comes directly from the strategic plan is the family support package, which will be Article 8 on the town meeting warrant. If it passes, it will fund preschool services for 3 and 4-year-olds, full-time for 4-year-olds and half-time for 3-year-olds. It will give free school lunch to every Eastham resident who attends school. It will provide $100,000 a year towards workforce housing initiatives, not affordable housing initiatives, but workforce housing has no funding from the state and federal government right now. So if we want to ratchet up our housing program for people who work here, then we're going to need to create some of that ourselves. And it also will fund a couple of other human service needs. One is the after-school program at the elementary school, and some additional funding to the Food for Kids program, which served kids all summer long for free lunches at the elementary school. That is an override because all of those are new services. So the Board of Selectmen made a policy decision a few years ago, which I encouraged them to do, which basically, if we are adding services to the budget, then we are also asking for an additional sum of money to fund those services. We don't want to be in the position where we start a new service and then have to eliminate another essential service or cut another essential service in order to pay for something that's new. So this will be before the voters. I'm not sure how they'll react to it, but it is an important new initiative that we have taken up, and it's part of our strategic plan to help support families that are living here and attract new families to live here. We also are doing some IT improvements, hopefully planned next year, to do online payment and some online services that will help us respond better to people who need summertime services like beach stickers and all of those functions. We're doing some permitting online, but we haven't gone fully online for permitting, and that's the goal within the next year or two. And I think that is it for now for me. I only had one question that I did not answer that was asked, and that's basically the seasonal cottage question. And Tara, I have not gotten back to you because it's fairly complex. So it involves, for me, checking health regulations, zoning regulations, and the housing code for the state. So I just have to, I do want to get her an answer, and I will. And it may affect a lot of people. What basically the question is, you know, if you have a seasonal cottage, it's seasonal. Why is it seasonal, and can you convert it to year-round? And I think in some instances the answer will be yes, and some no, but I need to work that out. And part of the problem with that is that the state housing code has a certain size that is required for year-round use. And then that affects us when we're building any kind of housing or affordable housing too. We can't use something like a tiny home to meet our criteria. And even though a single person might love a tiny home and feel comfortable there, it wouldn't count towards our housing goals. So let me get more info on that, and I promise I will get back to you, Tara. I have not forgotten you. And that's all I have for this evening. I'm extremely proud of my staff and what they've presented to you tonight. There's so much more. We're doing a presentation to the select board Monday night of the update on all of our capital and other projects. And we are juggling almost 40 projects, plus 3 new bylaw revisions in simultaneously this year and into next year, and they're doing all of this hard work despite the fact that we have a global pandemic. So I think for a small town, we're functioning extremely well, and I thank you for your support, your tax dollars, and your interest in the town of Eastham.
Thank you very much, Jackie. I also want to thank Art and Amy and Rich and Silvio and Paul for attending tonight. One last thing, TJ Keene, our administrator, has the results of our ballots tonight, and I'm going to ask TJ to share that with everyone.
I'd be happy to, everybody. Again, thank you for the Eastham team giving us some great content tonight.
TJ?
Okay. Oh, wait.
Thanks, Helen. I want to thank the Eastham team helping us out tonight. Always great to hear from them and the great things that are happening. In terms of the results, we had upwards of 50 people watching, and across the 3 motions that were brought to a vote, the meeting minutes had 13 yeses. The budget had 11 yeses and no nos. And the slate of boards and officers also had 11 votes, 100% passed.
Thank you very much, TJ. All right, and members, I hope that we will be able to see you in person in 2021 at least one time. And board members as well, thank you very much for attending tonight and for your time that you have helped out for the organization. As everyone knows, Mary is going to be taking over as president after tonight. Had a long run of it. And I'm going to remain on the board, but I also want to thank everyone for your support while I was an officer. Thank you very much. And members, we'll see you in 2021.
On behalf of the board, I also want to thank Helen for her dedication and her leadership to this group. And we really appreciate it, Helen. I hope you got the flower arrangement that the board sent your way today. Did that arrive?
I get anything. It hasn't arrived yet.
Oh, okay. Well, enjoy it.
Okay, we're waiting till tomorrow, though. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And good night.
Good night.